Alright, how's it going guys? Back here with another collection video for you. As it happens, at the moment we're still going through this coronavirus pandemic. This is the 5th consecutive week in lockdown, I think, so hope everyone's coping with that as best you can. It's pretty boring, but it gives me more time to explore music, listen to music, that kind of thing, so hope you're finding time to do the things you want to do. And yeah, I'm just going to go straight into the video today because I've got a few CDs to talk about. You'll recall that in the last video I talked about my death metal vinyl, the first 5, and because I don't have as many vinyls as CDs, I'm going to go back to CDs today for a bit and talk about those just for the next couple of videos. We'll see how it goes. If you want to see something different later on, let me know, but for today that's what we're doing. Okay, so first of all, what I'm listening to in the background, band which needs no introduction, this is Black Sabbath with the Dio years. So at the time of filming this, yesterday was the 40th anniversary of the release of Black Sabbath's Heaven and Hell, which was of course the first album to feature Ronnie James Dio on lead vocals. Legendary band, he's a legend, don't need to go into any detail about that, everyone knows who they are, who he is. Fantastic. I'm ashamed to admit that I don't own Heaven and Hell in original format. So a few years ago I bought this, which is basically a greatest hits CD featuring, and the cover's broken. Yeah, featuring the best of the Dio fronted songs for the Black Sabbath years. So you've got those albums like Heaven and Hell, Mob Rules, and so on. Really good compilation. It's got some history in here and everything. I don't look at this too much, it's mainly the music that I'm interested in, so listen to that, but some great songs on here, like some of my favorites, Voodoo, TV Crimes, and of course what's playing now. You've got the songs from Heaven and Hell, like Neon Knights, Lady Evil, Heaven and Hell. So yeah, just a great album, great band. Okay, so today I've got 9 CDs to talk about. That's quite a lot, so I don't want to go into too much detail. I'll try and spare you of that. Spoiler, let me see. All of the CDs, bar one, are about the same band, so you'll learn pretty quickly. If you're not interested in this band, this video may not be for you, but we'll have to see. So the first one, this is a one-off CD that I'm going to talk about, and then the second band is 8 or 9 albums. You'll remember that the last time I was in the alphabet for CDs, I spoke about, before the collection update, it was the Alice CDs, like Alice in Chains. So now we're up to AM in the alphabet. So the first CD I'm going to talk about today is AMORPHIS with The Crusher. Again, AMORPHIS is a band which needs no significant introduction. They're a very famous melodic Swedish death metal band, and known for being a bit different because they have the Viking theme going on. And to their credit, like, they're one of the most successful of those bands. Like, they're a very high-selling band now, and very deservedly so, because they're a great band. A lot of people classify them as melodic death metal, but I think that umbrella, that term, it covers a really wide range of bands. Like, under that umbrella you also have bands like Hypocrisy, you have At the Gates, Soilwork, Arch Enemy, and yeah, so some of those are quite different. I will say this about that subgenre in general. With melodic Swedish death metal, it's not one of my favorites in general. Like, I do like a select number of bands. Without naming names, I find that a lot of those bands sound a bit interchangeable, but then again, people could say that about the genres that I'm really passionate about, so I guess it's all about taste. But I think that AMORPHIS is actually an exception to those bands. I think they really stand out because their songs are more sort of anthemic and heavier, to me anyway, so like and epic as well. So a lot of those bands, it's about speed, but there's no low end, or the production's not very good, I find. But with this band, it's got all of those things. So AMORPHIS, of course, has a shitload of albums, and this one is one of their earlier ones. I think the 3rd one, which came out in the early 2000s. So to show you this, and disc here. So yeah, they've had a really prolific release schedule, like a lot of albums, and as I said, they're very popular. I haven't followed this band from the beginning. Actually, to be honest, I picked up this one because I saw it in discounted in a local CD shop a few years ago and decided to grab it, but I was pleasantly surprised. It's just solid melodic death metal, but as I said, it's got bottom end, it's very heavy, and I find that these songs are more sort of anthemic than your average melodic Swedish death metal band. And I think with that Viking theme and the lyrics and so on, it's more epic and yeah, generally quite exciting. So yeah, no complaints if you know the components of melodic death metal. I don't need to say much. This album, it's a good solid listen, heavy, catchy, easy to tap along to. One thing I will say is, like with a lot of melodic death metal, I find when you just sit down and listen to this album as a whole, again, a lot of the songs become a bit interchangeable. They don't stand apart too much, in my opinion, but maybe it's because of my taste, so other people may think differently. But as a overall listen, I do enjoy it. There are some standout tracks with some just great riffs, so I think my favorite songs on this are the opening track, which is Bastards of a Lying Breed. Some quite explicit lyrics in that song, which I thought, I never heard certain words in that used in the context of, you know, Viking-oriented music, so it was interesting. As long as the Raven flies, like great, chunky, heavy riff in that towards the end, brilliant. And then the last few tracks I find really exciting as well. So Annihilation of Hammerfest, and also Releasing Surtur's Fire. Not sure if I pronounced that correctly, but yeah, they're towards the end, the third last and the last song. Just some really epic songs on that. So, as I said, it's not my favorite subgenre, and I haven't followed this band avidly, but I do like it, and it's a good solid album. So if you just want some heavy, catchy, melodic Swedish death metal, it's worth checking out. What's your favorite AMORPHIS album? Tell me which is essential. I'm interested to know. Okay, all right. So up next, all of the remaining CDs are about the one band. So get ready for this. I'm not going to dwell on each one for too long, and it's a very famous band, so I don't need to go into too much detail. So that band is, of course, the Finnish band AMORPHIS. So starting with the first CD today, this is AMORPHIS with Privilege of Evil. Okay, so this is, you can see it comes in this is the original. It came in a single container when I ordered it from Relapse Records. So this is from the band's early days. And at that time, obviously now they're progressive metal, they've evolved into many different things. This was more when the band was a purist death metal band or death doom band. Now I will say, I know that Finland has a very rich death metal and death doom scene, which I'm not overly familiar with, I have to admit. So a lot to discover there on my part. But these earlier albums sort of fit into that scene, I think. So how would I describe this? It's dark, raw death metal. Very heavy, slow to mid-pace, like it's got a bit of a crawl to it, but they do have blast beats, except it's not insanely fast, but sort of just like raw, dark Scandinavian death metal. And as I said, I don't know a lot of bands in that scene, in that Finnish scene, but comparing it to some bands I know, kind of if you like Dark Throne's Soulside Journey, which was their debut album, which was death metal in the vein of Therion and stuff like that. They also sound a bit to me like the Norwegian band Thou Shalt Suffer and the Swedish band, black death metal band Darkified. So they're my reference points as bands I know, but if that kind of thing is up your alley, definitely check this out. It's interesting to see how this band's evolved. All of the vocals are guttural, all the guitars are down-tuned. It's just pure death metal with a doomy element as well. So all great as an overall listen. I love this. My favorite tracks on this, I would have to say, would be the title track, Privilege of Evil. The way they use the keyboards and synths in that, it's really haunting and mesmerizing. And also track 5, Vulgar Necrolatry, just brutal and dark again. And that song actually features a guest lead vocalist, Jukka Kolemainen from Ex-Abhorrence. So not sure if I pronounced his name right, but that's one of those bands from this scene I'm referring to. So you guys probably know about that. But yeah, raw, heavy, dark death metal. It's a great debut, I think. Yeah. Is it a debut? I'm not sure if it's a debut, but good early release from AMORPHIS. So that's AMORPHIS with Privilege of Evil. Okay, next. Now, there are some gaps in my AMORPHIS collection as a result of CD and tape trading days and that kind of thing. I don't have everything on original, so I don't have the Karelian Isthmus on original. I don't have Tales from a Thousand Lakes. Shock horror, I know that's a crime, but I will get around to getting that. So moving along chronologically to the next original CD I have, this is Black Winter Day. Black Winter Day was of course the single from Tales from a Thousand Lakes, and it saw Amorphis moving into new territory with the introduction of a more melodic aspect to their music, keyboards in a more melodic way, and also clean vocals. So the very first time I heard that song, this song, Black Winter Day, I was just awestruck, mesmerized. It's a brilliant song, so atmospheric, and you can sing along to it, and just melancholic. It's so many things, a very emotional song. So I just love to hear that song. I thought, okay, I'm gonna buy this. I also like the artwork, which is great. And this features some other songs. I think they're not from Tales from a Thousand Lakes. These are specially released, so you can see there. Folk of the North, Moon and Sun, and Moon and Sun Part 2, North Sun. So no complaints there. It's all sort of, it's kind of death metal, but it's moving in a more melodic, orchestral, symphonic direction kind of thing. Well, not symphonic, but like a bit folky, I suppose, but just very atmospheric and moving music. Okay, so yeah, the cover art I like with the eagle with Thor's hammer over the sea. Then the disc, which has that as well. It's really cool. And yeah, just a lyric sheet in there. Okay, so most people say, as I mentioned in my previous video, Tales from a Thousand Lakes is most people's favorite. This is the single from that. Definitely check this out as a starting point if you haven't heard Amorphis or you haven't heard this song. Like, it's probably one of my favorite Amorphis songs to this day, so a great little EP single. So that's Amorphis with Black Winter Day. One thing I will say is that in 2015 I got to see this band live for the first time at Grass Pop Festival, and that was the anniversary of Tales from a Thousand Lakes. So they performed that album in its entirety with Tommy as the lead vocalist, including this song, and it was just amazing, mesmerizing experience. Like, I'll never forget that, so I was really pleased to finally see that. Ooh. All right, so next, this is an album which I talked about in my last video, in my death metal vinyl video, and I explained why I classified it as death metal in that video, so I don't need to go into this in too much detail. In that video I explained this is my favorite Amorphis album because it's like the balance between the early days of death metal and also their evolution into progressive metal, where they started using a lot of folky elements, even incorporating some Middle Eastern and psychedelic aspects to their music. So just a very eclectic, emotional, fantastic release. This was also the first album to feature lead vocalist Pasi Koskinen with a shaved head there, and his vocals like formed a very distinct part of this band, and I think he's just a tremendous vocalist. He really brought a lot to this band, and he was their long-term vocalist for many years. One thing I didn't mention in my previous video is that this album is based on the Finnish folk tales from the Kalevala, I think, so that's where the lyrical inspiration comes from, and I think that continues with this band to this day in some respects. But this album is a very concept-based album. Yeah. The liner notes regarding that there, and just lyric sheet, lyrics readably set out, which is always good. It features, a lot of people call it melodic death metal, progressive death metal. It does feature the low-pitched growled vocals, but of course there's also the clean singing, and that's when Pasi made a really sort of strong impact on this band. Also the keyboards play a big role in this. Yeah, fantastic release. See my previous video for more detail, but this is my favorite Amorphis album because it was the first one I heard back in the day, back in the late 90s, thanks Relapse compilations. My favorite tracks, as I said before, Better Unborn, Against Widows, The Orphan, On Rich and Poor. Elegy, the title track, which is a little bit depressing but a very moving song, and My Kantele, the acoustic version. So just an amazing release, really cool. So that's Amorphis with Elegy. Okay, next, another EP or single. This is Amorphis with My Kantele. So on Elegy, they have the song My Kantele, which includes the heavy guitars, the synths and the death metal vocals, then also the acoustic version. This EP is a single or EP of the acoustic version, which is actually my preferred version. So I thought I've got to get this as a collector's item. Back in the day, I jumped on it. Yeah, disc there. Yep, so they include the lyrics for the 2 songs. Actually, this is a 5-song EP. So you've got My Kantele and then 2 songs which were released exclusively for this EP. So that's The Brother Slayer and The Lost Son. The Brother Slayer is another sort of mournful, folky song, which is really good. I like that a lot. And The Lost Son is an atmospheric instrumental, which is great. It also features 2 covers. So Levitation, originally performed by Hawkwind, and I Hear Your Call, originally performed by Kingston Wall. So that's where I think Amorphis is paying tribute to their psychedelic influences and prog rock influences, which made them go in the direction they did. But yeah, as I said, My Kantele, a great mournful, melancholic acoustic track full of emotion. Every song on this EP is very good. So for me, just as a diehard fan, I had to get this. But like, even the covers are great, so no complaints here. That's Amorphis with My Kantele. Right, moving through this quicker than I thought, which is great. Okay, next, the following Amorphis full length. This is Tuonela. And for me, this is, I know I said Elegy was my favorite. This is probably my second favorite. A very nostalgic album for me, because at the time it came out, I was still at university. Those were the days. Yeah, so 2001, I bought this CD and I listened to it obsessively throughout that year. So this was one of the albums which formed the soundtrack to my life at that time. And what a great album it is. I know a lot of people say this is one of their favorites as well, so I'm sure I'm not alone with this. Pretty cool graphic layout, so you can see probably from the artwork and the coloring and everything, the band's moving in an even more progressive direction. On this album, death metal vocals are almost completely absent. So this was the album where the vocals are dominated by Pasi Koskinen singing clean vocals. I think one song, Greed, features some death metal vocals, but the rest, it's all clean singing. And this is just a brilliant album. This is probably one of their most melancholic and depressive albums, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just a very emotional album, and just some great melodies, like the opening track, The Way, just like the guitar in that, when that track opens up, it is striking immediately. It's like, wow, those melodies just catch you. And the songs are like mournful and sorrowful, but very easy to sing along to, like just those emotional songs. You can sing your heart out to them, I guess. But yeah, really no bad songs on this. I was listening to it again just recently and I like it as much as I did back then. This version, this is the one I bought in Australia, so it features a bonus track, Northern Lights, which was released exclusively for Australia. But my favorite tracks on this, really no bad tracks at all, but my absolute favorites, track 2, Morning Star, track 3, Nightfall, is probably my favorite. Just unbelievable, that song, I love it. Also the title track, Tuonela, that's when they go sink to the really melancholic depths of emotion, which is good. Withered is a good one, another sorrowful song, but like a Greed, that's sort of like a sort of heavy, strutting, chugging one, more in a death metal style, but this album is just full of emotion. Rusty Moon has some really striking melodies again, with, I think they use flutes or some kind of wind instruments in that, but like, if you just want melancholy, emotion, striking melodies, and just a great listen, you've got to check this album out. Like, one of my favorites. The only shortcoming I think with this album, I'm not sure if other people feel the same, is I think the production's a bit compressed, it's a bit thin, but that's only a minor thing, a minor complaint. Apart from that, it's an absolutely great album, and probably my second favorite Amorphis album, so definitely check this out. You've got to be in the right mood to listen to it, but when you are, like, it's just fantastic, worth checking out regardless. So that's Amorphis with Tuonela. Okay. Up next, God, thirsty. So then we have the album which came out after that, another good album from AMORPHIS. This is Universum. Really interesting artwork, which I've never been able to work out. Comes in this sort of rough paper digipack. And there we go. Oops. Yeah. Lyric sheet included. Quite nice graphics and layout on this album. Right, so this one, as I said, is another very good album. I would say it may be my third favorite AMORPHIS album. So Elegy, Tuonela, and then this one. This was the album which saw the band, so they were starting to evolve in a progressive direction with the clean singing and everything. This is where I find they just blossom with the confidence, and just, it's heavier, it's louder, it's even more striking than Tuonela. Tuonela was more melancholic. This one's a bit more rocking, not as sorrowful, but there are, of course, it's AMORPHIS, so there are those songs like the opening track alone with the piano, very melancholic and depressive, and also Shadows Within, yeah, Grief-Stricken Heart. So it's still sorrowful, but it's also more rocking and energetic. And again, a lot of the sorrowful songs on this album, they're sad, but like, again, the vocals are so powerful, it's just very easy to sing along to that. Like Shadows Within, just these very memorable melodies. But talking about my favorite songs, track 2, Goddess of the Sad Man. The Night Is Over. Wow, that's probably my favorite track on the album. Just so good, that song. And then continuing with that, Crimson Wave, just great, heavy, catchy riff in that. In that song, they also incorporate some saxophone and piano, so like a lot of atmosphere with this band as always. Veil of Sin also uses saxophone, and just like yeah, the mood varies. Like some are just sort of reflective songs, some are sad and melancholic, some are upbeat, but it's that overall mood of sadness. I think this is one of their best, and it's funny, when it came out I always thought, yeah, it's pretty good, and then in recent years when I've listened to it more and more, I've learned to appreciate it more and just think, actually, this was a damn good album, definitely one of their best, and it's worthy of attention. So again, this is the band now blossoming into their fully progressive rock status, I suppose. So definitely check it out. AMORPHIS and Universum. Okay, now the next one, another album which I really like a lot. This is Far From the Sun, which came out in 2003. Yeah. So when I first heard this album, again, very striking, loved it. Another mournful and sorrowful album, but yeah, just this band never recycles ideas. Maybe the same mood, but not the ideas musically. So like they have these really standout tracks, and this was the album where it became like Universum was very progressive. This one also becomes very epic, you know, like invoking, I know they're Finnish, but like sort of invoking a Celtic atmosphere, like on songs like Day of Your Beliefs and stuff like that. So just the music is again very striking, the vocals, the clean vocals, just amazing, memorable melodies, sorrowful all the time. And yeah, the graphic layout of this is pretty good. Going for the red and white theme here. Band photo there. So they had the same lineup for, pretty much the same lineup for the last few albums I've talked about. There are no bad tracks as such, but these days, for me, I find myself hitting the skip button with some tracks, just because, not because they're bad, it's just like a lot of them are sort of droning and sad, and I'm not always in the mood to hear that really. You can sing along to these songs, no problem, but just I find that this album has some real standout tracks, and they're the ones that I mostly listen to. So my favorite tracks on this album: Day of Your Beliefs, brilliant; Planetary Misfortune and Evil Inside, tracks 1, 2 and 3. Definitely check those out. Evil Inside has got this sort of like plotting, sinister atmosphere as well, and Planetary Misfortune, this really sort of yearning, mournful chorus, just great. Far From the Sun, the title track, is a very epic song as well, which is great. And then Higher Ground, which features sitar and Middle Eastern instruments, that would be one of my favorites. Like just such a heavy, great breakdown in the chorus, and like the the way all the music and the vocals come together. I love that. So yeah, my favorite tracks, the first three, Far From the Sun, and also Higher Ground. Smithereens is a good, sad, melancholic closer, but there are ones which, for me personally, I'm not into that much, like Morning Soil, Ethereal Solitude, Killing Goodness, God of Deception. They're okay, but I have to be in the right mood to hear those, and I'm often not. So anyway, definitely for the good tracks alone, and remember, a lot of you might think this is a perfect album, so hey, it's just me, but for those 4 tracks which I recommend, 5 tracks I recommended alone, this is a brilliant album, so check it out. AMORPHIS with Far From the Sun. Okay. Alright, so what happened with the band next was there was a personnel change. So most of you know Pasi Koskinen left the band, the lead vocalist, and he was replaced by Tommi Juttunen. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. So I just want to say one thing, this is where there are some gaps in my collection. Not the reason being, at that stage when I was obsessed with AMORPHIS, huge fan, I was in disbelief. I was going, oh no, but nothing. It was nothing against Tommy, the new singer, but I was there thinking, oh, but without Pasi, it's not AMORPHIS. How can it be? Because it's such an important aspect of the band. So in my sort of youthful narrow-mindedness, I went, oh, I'm not sure if I had nothing against them. My interest sort of dropped off a bit, but it's really unfair because I didn't give it a chance. And then in subsequent years, I've heard some of Tomlin's songs and albums, and yes, it's a different person, of course, like there are personnel changes, but he's a very good singer and he does a great job. His style fits AMORPHIS well, I think, and it's a little bit different to Pasi, which is good. Like sometimes variety is a good thing. So that's why I don't have the rest of their albums, but I do have one. So I got this a few years ago. This is AMORPHIS with The Beginning of Time, and a family member got me this actually for a birthday, which I really appreciated because I thought, now this will give me a chance to open my mind and check out this band. I wasn't disappointed. I thought, oh, why did I neglect them for so long? Because as I said, Tommy is a great singer. With his voice being a bit different, it sort of reminds me a bit, in some ways, of Ville Valo, you know, like the singer of Him. A little bit, but not exactly. But it very much suits AMORPHIS' style, I think. So, yeah, this album, you see AMORPHIS evolving for those lofty heights again with progression. They still use, like, keyboards are becoming a bigger aspect of their music, and pianos and everything, and just these sorrowful, melancholic tunes. So really good, and once again, it's sort of that epic style they're going to. So Far From the Sun started that, and they're going more into that epic territory, which I really like. When I've listened to this album quite a few times lately, and I've really enjoyed it, I will say that it's sort of, I feel that a lot of the tracks are interchangeable again. They sort of blend into one, but it's the overall mood which I really like, and the melodies are easy to sing along to, easy to remember, so it's great. My favorite songs on this, Battle for Light, the opening track, just that classic AMORPHIS melody which starts it. Mermaid with the use of pianos and keyboards, very epic sounding. My absolute favorite song on this, because of the vocal melodies and the chorus, is Song of the Sage. Like, Tommy did a great job on that song, just brilliant. And the other one I liked was Soothsayer, yeah. Also, Crack in a Stone and Beginning of Time, the title track, are great, but especially, like, my absolute favorite would be Song of the Sage. Definitely worth checking out. Now, I will say this, all of the other albums I don't have, and I haven't heard much of, just bits here and there, so maybe you can recommend to me which albums with Tommy would you recommend that I check out, because as I said, I'm open to it. You see, this, what's really cool about this album, instead of a regular CD case, it's sort of released in a book format. So you can see it's like a book spine there, and it comes in this beautiful, see, it's laid out like a picture book with a lot of lyrics and colorful illustrations. So they really made a great effort with the packaging and the graphic design with this. Yeah, so you can read along to the lyrics, and once again the lyrics are clear, which I always appreciate. Clear as in readable, like I hate those albums where people shrink them up. Yeah, and then you have the disc with the egg on it, yeah, just very nice. So exquisite packaging for this release. This was the album which sort of opened me up to the new lineup of AMORPHIS, and it's hopefully the starting point for me to listen to some other albums, but I'm interested to hear from you guys, what's your favorite AMORPHIS album and why, and which Tommy ones would you recommend? Now, another thing I wanted to say, with a lot of bands like this where I have multiple releases, I would like to do a sort of ranking discography, but it's unfair if I don't have all of them. So with AMORPHIS, there's massive gaps in my collection, so I'm not going to do that. But with other bands where I have all of the releases, or most of them, I will do some ranking discographies, just because it changes it up a bit, so you don't know what's coming next, exactly. Okay, so that's it for today. I'm really surprised that I got through it quickly, so that's good. What's going to happen next? I think I'm still going to continue with CDs for a while, because I have a lot more CDs than vinyl, but after the next 2 or 3, I'll probably go back to vinyl and look at doing black metal or heavy metal, and maybe ask you guys what you want to see. So in the meantime, I hope you're taking care during this quarantine pandemic and staying safe. Hope you're not too bored. Any comments you have about the vinyl videos you want to see next, let me go. And enjoy the rest of your time at home. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.